Oh. Okay, it's taking us back a bit. Oh. Up in the sky. Oh my God. That's them, isn't it? It's gotta be. Yep, that's the chairman. On the right. That's gotta be Zeno. It's gotta be Zeno. Oh my God. Look at that. That's beautiful though, eh? Oh man, the storyboarding though. Instinct. Sometimes that's just enough. You just know that something's up. And someone that sharp, you know, it's... It really made sense, right? It's gotta be from above. I've got butterflies in my stomach right now. Oh, she can do that, eh? Redirect it into a beam? But how high can she go? Yeah, how about that though? It's gone from this area. Ooh. Oh, look at that. Reaching out. Okay, that's her limit, I suppose. It's gotta be Zeno. It's a dragon. It's a fucking dragon. It's Zeno. It's Zeno. Oh. It is him. It is him. He's got the pose. Oh my God. Oh. Ooh. Oh my God, that is stunning. Come on. Chills. Dragon dive. Ah.
極限まで研ぎ澄まされたピトーの六冠は容易に自身を侵入者のもとに運んだ。降り注ぐ無数の竜よりも危険なのはあの人間。
The humans in the sky. These are not just normal humans, man. These are gods, almost.
それはピトーが全力で戦う時に発現させる念能力。
Devilish in its appearance.
発動から攻撃まで要する時間は 0.1 秒を切る。しかしピトーはその狭間、確かに聞いた。受け攻めいくつか予想した。
Sure you have, Chairman.
そりゃ握手だろう。アリンコ。確かにある。ありえない。
Oh, is this the chairman going to him? Dragons.
のようなもんじゃ。死ぬって瞬間に時間が超スローになって自分の人生を振り返る感覚あるじゃろ。むしろそれより信憑性を測りやすいぞ。何しろ自分じゃなく相手がその時思っていたことを聞き取るんじゃの。
Like Pito just did, eh? He almost looked at me there.
まあ、 いくつかあるが
Oh, he's not speaking to the
ま
chairman.
ず念が恐ろしく静かじゃ。奴のオーラの流れから次の攻撃を読むのは誰にもできんな。伊達に長く生きてないわけよ。精神的にはもう植物の域じゃ。
Ah, resilient.
何しろ、あのジジイ。わしが血のみごの頃からジジイじゃ。
Holy shit.
わしのジジイと喧嘩して生存しておる唯一の人間じゃし。
So it's either Silva or
知人には違いない。
acquaintance.
持たれているという
Ah.
アホ、対等なわけあるか。いつもこっちが泣かされとるわい。強さの秘密じゃったな。あとは、そうさな。
It almost feels like he's giving an
戦闘
interview.
の方で言えば、百式観音。これが最もやっ
But he's also kind of looking at me, the audience member. Interesting. The battle fit, the lucky shirt.
ネテロの一連の動作はこの上なく流麗かつ緩やかに行われたようピトーは感じたが、
Oh.
いなピトーの念能力の発動から攻撃までの刹那に全てがなされたことに疑いの余地はなく、それはピトーが己の体感時間を限りなく圧縮し、自らの時を止めるに等しい状態に置くことでしか
Whoa.
ネテロの動きを目で捉えることができなかったことに起因する。つまり真相は
Whoa. Ah.
不可避の速攻である。
Oh. Kind of speechless right now, man. This is staggering. The scale of it, the scope of it.
ネテロ46歳
Oh my god.
冬
Backstory?
己の肉体と武術に限界を感じ、悩みに悩み抜いた結果、感謝であった。
Like Ikalgo's gratitude. Man out here looking like Ken. 46, eh? He's always had the ears. Right. I saw that just now against Neferpito as well.
自分自身を育ててくれた武道への限りなく大きな恩、自分なりに少しでも返そうと思い立ったのが、一日1万回感謝の聖剣好き気を整え、拝み祈り構えてつく。
Wow. Oh, did I get a glimpse of this? It showed me like a... Oh. It showed me something similar. A glimpse into it. The fields.
2年が過ぎた頃、異変に気づく。1万回突き終えても日が暮れていない。
Oh, look at this.
弱い50を超えて
Just gonna say, a depiction of metamorphosis.
感謝の聖剣好き
At the age of 50, I believe, right? That's, yeah.
1時間を切る代わりに祈る時間が増えた。
It kind of goes back to episode 85, the imagery behind him, right? The Buddhist imagery, I believe. Wow. That's a lot of time to dedicate to that from his life. An incredible expression of his resolve. He looks like a somebody. He's got that look about him, doesn't he? Oh.
山を降りた時、ネテロの拳は音を置き去りにした。
気のせいだよな。一瞬消えて音が後から。
You just can perceive him.
館長、観音様が。
A deity, perhaps?
看板かけてやるかい。
Did he feel like the presence?
差し上げまする。
怪物が 誕生した。
Ugh.
いいよ、飯をおごってくれたらな。
今から60年以上昔のことで。
Wow. Look at her. This is enchanting almost, right? There is something magical about this imagery. Enchanting. Oh.
そのまま彼方へ消えてくれるとありが
Okay,
た
so
い。
it's not meant to be a kill shot.
このままだと相当遠くまで吹き飛ばされる。
Or is it? Was she just able to take it?
ドクター・ブライスは発言させた場所から
Ah, clever girl.
術師
Anchor.
ピトーも能力と尾でつながっているため
Clever.
行動半径が20メートルほどに限られる。
Ooh, that's gotta be painful though.
その制約がピトー離脱の窮地を救った。
Wow.
止まった。早く。
You've got no control in this situation. You just have to... Yeah. It must feel like an eternity for her. Oh, those are gonna hit. Oh. Oh my god. Oh my god. Holy shit, it's actually happening. First to clock it. They have a slight jump on him from the looks of it. He's a little distracted because of the noise, the commotion. Yeah. Ooh, flutter or Ikalgo. Yep, he's holding his breath, so that's in effect. Yeah, they're invisible at the moment. Tag him as quickly as you can. Go, Ikalgo, go. I knew it, it's gonna end. Oh.
そこで彼らが目にしたのは計画時には誰しもがそこに
Killua was spot on.
もしなかったユピーの姿だった。
Okay, let's see. How do I begin this, man? I mean, of course, I'll get to the next steps in a bit. The connotations of everything that's been put into motion. The potential collateral damage, right? I mean, there's just so much at play here. The really interesting dynamics that are at play here as well. One of them, for a really quick example, the Zoldycks. Finally I get official confirmation that indeed it is Xenozoldyck, right? And he facilitates an incredible entrance, right? But, the point I'm trying to make here is that, his grandson is around as well, right? So I'm guessing that the chairman might have mentioned that to him, or maybe not. I don't know. Let's see how it all plays out. But, that's a really interesting dynamic here. Killua has no idea that his grandpa is here now, right? Hell, the extermination squad doesn't even know, right? They don't know this part of the plan. The grand entrance, death from above. And again, like I said, it felt like that is essentially, through the process of elimination as well, the most logical conclusion at this point, and it does end up being an entrance from above, right? The dragon dive specifically. My god. But before I get into all of that, let's just focus on the episode as a whole. I think I've just experienced a visual masterpiece. I have, right? It's gripping, it's jaw-dropping, right? It's this, it truly has some of the most iconic anime imagery, right? I feel, from my experiences of anime up until this point that, some of the most iconic anime imagery is present within the runtime of this episode. It is just one of the most enthralling episodes, right? It's enchanting. It's beautiful at times. And it's just so damn grand. The scope of it is staggering. I mean, it's an unforgettable moment in this anime and just anime altogether. And hell, even beyond anime, it's one of those, moments that once you experience it, it's always going to be kind of like a core memory for that IP or that story, right? Regardless of it being anime, live action, books, graphic novels, and gaming, right? This, there's stuff present in this episode that is now, in my memory. It's like it's locked in, for the rest of my life, in association with Hunter x Hunter. And that's happened on a few occasions already in this anime. If you go back to some of the earlier episodes, episode 51, of course, as many of you know, I consider that to be one of the great anime episodes out of the stuff I've seen. I know I shouldn't really have to, establish that and explain that way. Sometimes you have to do a bit of hand holding, but yeah, it's been building and building and then building some more. And then finally I get the payoff, and it is just, it just lives up to all the hype and then some. Right? Like I said, unforgettable moments. I mean, just the occasion itself is monumental to the story of this anime. I feel like, a marker has been put down now. And, right now at this moment, as I sit here recording this, I am just as excited as I've ever been to get to the next episode of something, right? It's right up there. And, I'm sure, the next episode is about to be something quite special as well, right? Given the cliffhanger, given, again, like I touched upon earlier, the immediate aftermath, the connotations, and things that might have been put into, motion at this point, given the nature of the dragon dive. But, in terms of this being a monumental spectacle and living up to all that hype, I really truly feel that everything comes together, even existing score. Somehow, some of the music that I've been experiencing over the span of this arc, it being used in these scenes, accompanying these scenes, it somehow makes it even more epic, even more impactful, right? To see it in this, in these situations, in these really specific, incredible scenes. And again, the music itself, even though I've heard it so many times at this point, it just feels just so important to all of it, doesn't it? Like I said, it's a combination of all of these things coming together. The storyboarding, I mentioned the storyboarding. My God. I mean, the cinematography here is incredible. I think that one of the crowning achievements of this episode and the production of this episode is that immense sense of scale, that immense sense of depth that it's able to establish, right? It is truly breathtaking. I really felt that, I'm in it. In many of these shots, I felt it, that it's placing me, right beside Neferpito. As she looks up, there's one shot in there. There's a good chance it might end up being my thumbnail for this. I mean, there's many incredible frames that could be a thumbnail shot, but you have to be a little bit mindful about spoilers as well. I mean, there's that one image of the chairman and Zeno, right? I finally get the clear shot of them. That is something I'm kind of thinking about as well. But again, I have to be mindful of spoilers. It's not the type of thing you even accidentally want to spoil for someone. But again, for thumbnails, you have to think about the framing of the thumbnail. The cutout of myself and how it functions within the frame, right? Does it become overcrowded? Does it overlap? Does it hide a key component of the frame itself? All of these things kind of have to go into the thought process. But that just, I feel like that one shot of Neferpito looking up and the dragon dive, the arrows, right? The thousands and thousands of arrows, that the one massive dragon kind of just splits into. The sense of scale there, right? The immense sense of depth that it establishes, it's jaw-dropping. It is. And, another key component of this episode is our all-knowing narrator, right? Happy to report that I actually think it's really quite effective for the most part. Maybe there's one or two moments that, you could easily just understand just by looking at the situation, just by, observing essentially. But, again, for the most part, it makes a lot of sense for the narrator to be so prominently featured in this one, because in a lot of these really specific situations, you cannot have the characters exposit or monologue, right? Because that would just be so out of place. Again, given the nature of the things that are at play at this point. But, like I've said before, I believe that, the narrator can be hit and miss, right? I truly believe that. But in this case, really quite effective. I didn't mind it, because it just makes a lot of sense. As long as the inclusion makes narrative sense, right? The inclusion of the narrator, I don't mind it. I think in many cases it can enhance these scenes, right? But, there's, like I said, there's misses as well, right? Missteps. Anytime the narrator is explaining something that is just essentially clear, or should be clear, essentially, to the audience just through the actions on screen. That's the type of thing that almost kind of, breaks the immersion for me. Having to explain things that are just clear already. And then, of course, sometimes it's quite egregious, at least in my opinion, the narrator establishing something ahead of time, right? Listen, I'm sure, for many, actually, it's not really an issue. Again, it's a subjective thing. So yeah, now that everything's in play and there's multiple characters at play across the board, I'm expecting, much more of the narrator, right? Because I'm guessing it is kind of going to follow this type of approach, especially given, the time aspect of it, right? Because, it's really quite clear that the things that are at play here are happening much, much quicker, much faster than the things that are actually being shown, or the way it's being presented. Right. So if that approach continues, I can most definitely see much more of the narrator. But let's kind of shift the focus to the ending, the cliffhanger, the excruciating cliffhanger at that. I mean, that is just, it's incredible, isn't it? Even the final shot is quite incredible there. And now, finally, the extermination squad is inside, deep within the palace itself. And they find themselves face to face with Montotuyupi. Right, so this is it. This is his time to shine, his time in the spotlight. Montotuyupi, that is. And then, of course, from the other side, the extermination squad side, an immediate shift in the plans as well, right? Expect the unexpected. And the first thing that happens is the unexpected, right? And then beyond that, there is the dragon dive aspect of it. So that's yet another unexpected thing that they do kind of have to take into account, right? Because it's about to make contact. Contact is imminent, right? So that's another major factor here, right? The collateral damage, friendly fire, right? The connotations of the impact itself, right? Thousands and thousands of those arrows darting down, right? Carpet bombing, essentially. The one thing, or one of the crucial things that Montotuyupi simply cannot comprehend at this point, or simply just doesn't even see, is the presence of Melioron and Knuckle, right? So that they have the jump on him in that case, right? So, at this point, Knuckle just has to get up there as quickly as he can and tag him, right? Is it going to be that easy? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it, but that's the goal, right? I mean, it wasn't the goal, of course, because they're not expecting Montotuyupi to be there, but now it has to become the goal. Right, you see a target, you've got to land you've got to tag them, you've got to land the initial blow. But again, there's some factors at play here that could kind of prove to be a speed bump. Now, in terms of immediate aftermath and collateral damage and the connotations of this dragon dive, I immediately kind of begin to think about the worst possibilities of it. And in terms of the worst things that can happen, there's a few possibilities here, right? One of them being friendly fire, because again, the extermination squad does not know about this. And that is again going to throw a massive speed bump, right, into a new situation that they're facing at the moment, and the new situation being Montotuyupi, right? And then, beyond that, what if someone actually gets badly injured, right? And they are kind of taken out of the plan immediately, right? This all kind of checks out. Killua, who's got experience, given his former job, his past job, he knew this kind of thing is really likely. But then continuing on that path, on that train of thought, even worse than that, right, is if Komugi gets badly injured or dies because of this, right? And I hate to say it, but given the possibilities, the narrative possibilities, given the imminent encounter, I think that is something that could be likely, right? Given how, the king reacted a few episodes ago to her getting attacked by that hawk or that eagle, right? And his reaction to that. So imagine if she gets badly injured or, worse, ends up dying. I mean, I hate to think about it. I hate to even say it, because of course I don't want that to happen. But again, I hate to say it. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? For the next phase of it, perhaps, Meruem's encounter with the chairman, Netero. Because it remains to be seen if Zeno is going to play a part in that, right? Is it going to be a 2-on-1? Is it going to be similar to, Zeno and Silva going up against Crollo? And, speaking of that encounter, that fight, I saw the dragon, essentially, right? The emission, essentially, on a smaller scale back then. And, the dragon imagery has been present for some time now, right? It's been associated with the Zoldycks, around the time the Hunter exam arc ended. There's that really, striking shot of Illumi speaking of their home, right? And it's a shot of these stone dragons and Illumi. But yeah, is the chairman's old acquaintance going to stick around? Or, is this an officially paid gig and, his part of the gig is done? Right? And that being the actual dragon dive itself, the infiltration aspect of it, right? That could be a thing. It could be, but the thing is, they go really far back. I mean, they go so far back that once upon a time, baby Zeno is actually in the presence of an older chairman, older Netero, right? And that's insane because I immediately just assumed that Zeno is around the same age as the chairman, right? And that was one of the main reasons I speculated almost immediately about Zeno being this old acquaintance all that time ago, right? In that room, the hotel room, you've got Moro, you've got Nov Sensei, you've got Colt, right? And then he exits, the chairman that is. Because, the key component there is old acquaintance. So immediately that makes you think about someone that is kind of similar to Netero, right? Someone that is essentially kind of as respected as Netero, right? Someone that is, worthy of that type of respect. And as Xenozoldyck is one of the first thoughts I had about that, right? And then of course, in subsequent episodes, there's more hints. And then of course, a few episodes after that, Killua almost all but confirms it for us, right? He speaks of how his grandpa actually infiltrated, this exact place, some time ago, right? Now, I'm not sure if he actually used Dragon Dive that time as well. That time it might have been a bit more, of a sneaking mission. So if unfortunately something like that does end up happening, and Komugi does get injured, badly injured, or, even worse, ends up dying, it is going to have quite the impact, quite the effect on Meruem, who is already in quite a unique state of mind at the moment, right? In his metamorphosis. And there's another metamorphosis that's a part of this episode that I'll get to, right? Beyond, if all of this wasn't enough, I get a relevant backstory, right, to the man himself, the champion for humanity, essentially. Though at times he feels like a god, doesn't he? Right? But yeah, if something like that does end up happening, perhaps it'll trigger more introspection, a different type of introspection. Right? That, ultimately my actions, my presence, my existence brought this on. And I'm speaking of Meruem, King Meruem. But, if that does end up happening, let's look at the other side. How could someone like, there's two of them at the moment, right? Until further, updates, both Zeno and the chairman, how exactly is that going to affect them if they realize that, okay, there's been some, unfortunate collateral damage here, maybe friendly fire, again, maybe Komugi, a innocent civilian getting caught up in all of this. It might have an effect on them as well. But yeah, in terms of Zeno and his continued, part in all of this, maybe a possible run-in with his grandson, though, that being said, I feel like it's probably highly unlikely given, the situation they all find themselves in, especially, Killua on the other end of that. Alongside some of the other members of the extermination squad. So I don't know if it's likely, but they're close, much like how Kaluto and Killua are really quite close back in Greed Island as well, but they don't actually end up meeting, right? It could be something like that here as well. I mean, it's certainly not a time for reunions or anything, or chat with a relative, but I certainly hope that Killua finds out that his grandpa actually is here, because that could make for something interesting, I think, at least. But there's actually quite a major player in this episode, and that is Neferpitou. I mean, Neferpitou goes through it in this episode, right? At first there's that bloodlust, there's that excitement, that, at the most basic level, there's this big cat who is just enthralled by the lights above, by the shapes in the clouds and all of that, right? It's exciting at first for Neferpitou, right? The challenge that's being presented here. Neferpito's had a few moments of, wanting to maybe leave the area, maybe go fight a few of these people that she keeps hearing about, causing commotions and all of that, people like Moral. And now, there's this challenge that's just presenting itself, right, from the skies above. And of course, her initial reaction in comparison to FILMBuFF's initial reaction is quite the contrast, right? As expected, really. There's that really cute, cute moment as she sticks her tongue out. It's a split screen, right? It's got a heart on it. I suppose instead of using hard eyes, it's just a little heart on the tongue. But FILMBuFF, no. FILMBuFF is not excited by this prospect, and he's only got one thought, and he's in a bit of a panic, isn't he? Trying to get back to the king. Now I'm trying to, I was kind of thinking about this. I'm trying to think about why exactly he's so far, or rather so far from the main palace itself, because he had to make some distance as well, right? I think it's because of the whole hypnosis thing, right? The crowd that's on standby. I think that kind of checks out. That makes sense. But you see, he's in a state of panic. He's trying his best to get to the king, and he can fly, and even he's kind of again in a state of panic and struggling in that moment, because they understand this is happening quickly. Really, really quickly. But yeah, in terms of Neferpito's role in this episode, it goes from this, excitement, this bloodlust. I see images of Neferpito that I've never seen before. The way she's actually drawn in this one, right? I see the true bloodlust. I see essentially the pinnacle of her abilities at play as well, right? Though, of course, the chairman believes, that she made the wrong choice. But yeah, after a certain point, that bloodlust and that excitement kind of turns to dread, right? Because of her choices, the choices she makes out there. The miscalculation, first one, she gets rid of her N, and then, there's a bit of a panic because she's not able to, specify or target or lock on to the humans that are in the sky. But she gets there, right? She gets there because, again, it heightens her senses to the max, right? Her sixth senses. But then, of course, later on, as she's falling, she's in a free fall. And, for her, it just feels like, time is frozen at that point. Right? It feels like it's taking an eternity because she simply has to look on as those projectiles head toward the castle, the palace, right? Again, impact is imminent. And, at that point, there's that shot of her, right? Almost kind of like a cross, right? Her body is making this cross. And in the distance, you see the palace about to get absolutely just carpet bombed. And, in those moments, there's some close-ups of Neferpito as well. And, again, great voice acting, I'd say. You feel the dread. At that point, she feels completely helpless, right? And there's that sense of, oh my God, I legitimately can't do anything at this point until I, make ground, until I land, right? Because essentially she's sky high at one point before taking that hit. Now, again, I kind of speculated about that being a potential kill shot, but, given the chairman's, follow up to that, I hope you don't come back or you don't return. It appears that he isn't actually trying to kill her in that moment. That it wasn't really truly a kill shot. It's more so to separate her from the situation at hand, launch her far into the distance. But of course, a bit of ingenuity, really quite clever to call upon Dr. Blythe, who really functions as an anchor to keep her into the fight. But let's kind of focus on the hit that she takes from the chairman, right? Even if it's not a kill shot, it is still a hit from the chairman, right? Now, there's something else that's being, set up for some time now. Right, something that's on the horizon. Hell, I see, I see Gon lock in. Killua also sees Gon lock in. There's a shot of Killua who doesn't actually even have to look at Gon. He all of a sudden he had a reaction to Gon kind of going into that space, into that headspace. That darkness within his heart that's building and building. So I thought that's a great approach. Killua is so in tune at this point that he could just feel it. Right, there's that really subtle reaction. And I love that, the camera focuses on Killua in that moment. But yeah, of course, Gon is locked in. But listen, Gon is not going to give her the type of challenge that the chairman can, the type of hits that the chairman can inflict, right? Yet something is going to happen here. I mean, it's been coming and it's been building and building. That encounter, that re-encounter, right? The rematch. So something's going to happen here, something that I simply have not seen yet, because it's going to require something of that ilk for it to actually give Gon some kind of chance against Neferpito, right? To actually deal damage. But of course, that encounter is perhaps a bit down the line, because at the moment, Gon finds himself alongside the rest of the extermination squad, face to face with Monteta Yuppie, and Neferpito is in the process of trying to get back to the palace. So let's see once it gets to that point. But let's now focus on the chairman, Metro. Listen, I'll be honest. At one point, I almost said something too, but then I let it kind of play out because I believe dialogue popped up. I was about to say, oh, okay, this is an interesting moment to put in a backstory, right? As far as pacing is concerned as well, in the middle of this really specific situation. But then as it played out and as it reaches its conclusion, and then you kind of even see the payoff of it, right? Him executing that technique, the graceful technique at that against Neferpito, it just all made sense. It makes complete sense to give us that backstory at that moment. And then, in the beginning of that, you have his old acquaintance, Zeno, actually speaking on it. Hell, at first I thought he's actually speaking to the chairman. I thought maybe that's, the moment the chairman showed up with the proposition, this unknown challenge, the pinnacle, the ultimate challenge in this Chimera Ant King, right? And that, maybe that's around the time he commissioned him. But no, then it becomes clear that he's not speaking to the chairman. He's actually speaking to someone else about the chairman. Now, there's a few possibilities here, at first it felt like maybe he's just speaking with Silva, but then, as the scene plays out, they're not showing us anyone. Then I thought maybe, it's an interview, a reporter or something, because even the presentation itself, it's that static from a television set. And the way it's kind of framed, and how he keeps clocking the camera almost as if he's breaking the fourth wall. Hell, that could be one of the possibilities. He is breaking the fourth wall and looking at us, the audience, right? Telling us directly. So that could be a unique approach, interesting approach. But to me, I think the most likeliest in this case is perhaps a third party, again, a reporter of sorts, or someone writing a book, maybe, who knows, asking one of his old and close acquaintances, I suppose, someone that knows him quite a bit. No, he's known him since he was a little baby. The yin to his yang and all of that. Asking him about the chairman. Now, it's not even clear if this is even before any of this is happening. There is a small possibility this could be after the events of this arc. But, one of the things that this backstory, the chairman's backstory reiterates is that, symbolically even, the chairman is the perfect person to fight Meruem, the perfect nemesis, right? Because, let's be honest here, Netero, the chairman, appears to be the pinnacle of the human spirit, right? Human strength and human exceptionalism, perhaps, right? This is someone that is nearly a god-type figure. But at the end of the day, he is human. He represents humanity, and perhaps the best and the worst of humanity, given how, he might approach things against Meruem once it gets to that. And then, of course, there's a juxtaposition between the king and Meruem, Meruem and the chairman, because of how the chairman became the person that he is today, right? How he became the strongest of humanity. Because on one end, you have someone who is simply born to be the strongest, right? It's all by design. And he's still only really maybe at most a month old. And then, of course, you've got his nemesis, who's essentially one of the oldest humans around, yet, one of the greatest, one of the strongest humanity has to offer. And, at the least, he's 110. I know that much, right? But he's certainly more than that. He's older than that. But then opposite to Meruem, you've got this individual who's achieved through perseverance, right? Through devotion and the willingness to push beyond his limits, mind, body, and soul, right? Attain enlightenment, essentially, and ultimately, right? The beauty of dedication is a core component of this backstory and essentially one of the core components of Netero's character, right? The beauty of dedication, the beauty of gratitude, right? Gratitude being the basis of it, and how, that gratitude toward his art is expressed, right? An expression of his resolve is on showcase. Like I said, training mind, body, and soul through years of discipline and meditation. And the crazy thing about this is that, there is a possibility here that Netero might have been the first one to, actually execute the concept of restriction-based Nen usage. Okay, maybe he's not the first one. That's kind of impossible to know, right? Because there might be a history even before Netero, right? Nen is a part of all living beings. So, it's been around for a long time. But, at least on screen through characters that are established, this could be one of the first, cases of it, perhaps, and I love how, there's this rhythm to it. I think, they describe it as, he would calm himself, then he would worship, then he would pray, then he would ready himself, then the punch, right? The execution itself. And I see all of that play out against Neferpito. And, the crazy thing is throughout those 4 years, as you see the seasons go by, and, again, beautiful imagery at that, you see the shift in the mountains and the formation of the mountains. Now, I'm not sure, maybe it's from different angles, or is it actually legitimately depicting that, he changed the formation of those mountains in that 4-year span, right? From 46 to 50. That's around the time he completes his metamorphosis and a monster is born. The idea of a monster, and, outliers, hunters being these outliers, it's certainly quite present still. I spoke of another possible monster, right, in God. Now, there's a bit of, terminology or, background information or lore that's maybe a little bit foreign to me, because it actually could be real life stuff, right? They've kind of touched up on it as well, and it makes a lot of sense given the spirituality of Netero himself. Right, so there is some Buddhist ideas or concepts at play here. Now, I think one thing that felt a bit clear to me, at least, is that the sensei of that dojo, he felt a presence there, right? You even see the imagery that's kind of flashing before his eyes there, and he believes he's in the in the presence of someone that's really quite special here, someone that has achieved something incredible. And he immediately devotes himself to this being. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one, folks. Like I said earlier, it's a monumental moment, occasion. It's just staggering in its scale, the scope of it. It lived up to all the hype, right? Like I said, it's been building and building, and the payoff is incredible. It's immense, right? It's an all-timer for this anime, and it's an all-timer for sure for all anime that I've experienced. But ultimately, I got one of the greatest entrances of all time for anything, really. The chairman truly finally entering the game now, right? Alongside Zeno as well. Let's not forget the things he facilitated here. The dragon dive is just incredibly cool. So cool, right? But yeah, if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in early access or timer-based full length, consider checking out the Patreon page and potentially supporting the channel as well in the process. Links are in the description and the pinned comment. Also links to social media, if that's your thing. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for the next one. Until then, take it easy.